This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, February 12th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this half hour with the severe storms creating deadly conditions in the south. Icy conditions wreaking havoc on the highways, creating several multiple car accidents. Oh, the worst in Fort Worth, Texas, where more than 130 vehicles piled up on the highway. The carnage stretching for more than a mile and a half. At least 6 people lost their lives and about 65 were injured. The survivors reliving the experience of being trapped as the chain reaction crash continued.
There were cars stacked on top of cars. The fact that I am not severely injured or dead is nothing short of a miracle. You can hear semi after semi after semi hitting the group of cars.
Similar crashes happening in other parts of the country. In Austin, Texas, a 26-car pileup littered the interstate. And in Atlanta, one person died in a fiery crash involving more than a dozen vehicles. The stretch of extreme weather continuing to threaten much of the country. Texas is getting ready for a second wave of icy storms, while much of the Midwest will see wind chills dropping temperatures to below zero, 30 below possibly, and potential blizzard conditions expected in the Northeast as well. I want to turn now to Washington and the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. House impeachment managers wrapped up their arguments Thursday. Now, President Trump's attorneys will present the defense. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson tells us what to expect.
President Trump's lawyers plan to argue Trump's speech on January 6 is protected by the First Amendment. And if they charge him, other lawmakers are guilty too.
I can give you Chuck Schumer's words when he stood in front of a mob in front of the Supreme Court and he said, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, you've unleashed the whirlwind and you will pay the price.
Republican Senator Rand Paul tells CBN News he doesn't believe Trump's speech incited the Capitol riot.
If we're going to judge political speech on the actual words, let's use one standard. And I think Democrats would find if they look in the mirror, they've been guilty of much more than they're accusing Trump of.
House impeachment managers spent 2 days making their case that President Trump's violent rhetoric led to the attack.
This was not a hidden crime. The president told them to be there, and so they actually believed they would face no punishment.
And argued once the attack started, he did nothing to stop it.
Why did President Trump not tell his supporters to stop the attack on the Capitol as soon as he learned of it? Why did President Trump do nothing to stop the attack for at least 2 hours after the attack began?
And showed no remorse.
People thought that what I said was totally appropriate.
GOP Senator Bill Cassidy told reporters Thursday he wants the defense to address Trump's actions once the siege began.
The president was calling to try and get more senators to decertify the election. Now, presumably, since we were at that point being evacuated, and I think he was told that, there was some awareness of the events. And so what I hope the defense does is explain that.
He also wants them to address Trump's repeated claims the election was stolen.
So when the point was made, people felt as if they had no recourse because their vote was being stolen. Well, the president built that story. So how do you defend that? How do you describe that? Because, again, people will still be telling me that Dominion rigged the machines.
Even with GOP senators like Cassidy weighing a possible vote to convict, Senator Paul believes the prosecution is nowhere close to convincing the 17 Republicans needed to bar Trump from seeking federal office again.
So there'll be 44 or 45 people to acquit. It'll be a largely partisan exercise. It will have destroyed any possible unifying concept that President Biden may have wished for, but it was his own doing.
The defense is expected to only take 1 day to present their case, and the final vote on whether or not to convict could come as early as this weekend. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
The Biden administration releasing good news in the fight against the coronavirus. The president announcing there will be enough vaccines to inoculate 300 million Americans by the end of the summer. He says they're on track to exceed the goal of administering 100 million vaccine doses in his first 100 days. He also announced a deal for 200 million more doses from Pfizer and Moderna by the end of July. And 100 million doses promised for delivery in June will now arrive in May. Dr. Anthony Fauci says in a few months, any American who wants the shot should be able to get it.
I would imagine by the time we get to April, that will be what I would call, for better wording, open season. Namely, virtually everybody and anybody in any category could start to get vaccinated.
The administration has also deployed active duty troops to help stand mass vaccination sites in several states in anticipation of the increased supply. This week, a hacker took deadly aim at a Florida city's drinking water. The cyber terrorist broke the computer system at a water treatment plant and increased the levels of a chemical used to purify water to dangerous proportions. The plot was foiled, but it's raising questions of who did it and are we prepared for future attacks? Eric Phillips has more.
U.S. lawmakers want to make sure Americans win this cyber war. It's why they called a group of experts to Capitol Hill Wednesday to try and figure out the best strategies to implement next. In the days following the breach of the water system in Oldsmar, Florida, investigators say they have leads but no suspects.
We don't know right now whether the breach originated from within the United States or outside the country. We also do not know why the Oldsmar system was targeted.
There is no technology magic bullet.
In the wake of this latest breach, lawmakers questioned cybersecurity experts about how to plot the next moves in this cyber war. One expert suggested the battleground is enormous.
People have thought about the power grid or the financial system, but it's almost any system that is connected to the internet, which is essentially almost anything today, can be a target. And so we need to be thinking very broadly in terms of our cyber defenses.
We need to go on offense. We need to make it harder for the adversaries to conduct these operations.
The panel also provided Congress a to-do list. First, get a leader, such as empowering the head of a government agency. This person would then oversee cybersecurity in the civilian world.
We need a comprehensive federal civilian agency cybersecurity strategy.
Also, experts say the relationship between the public and private sectors in this arena needs to be seamless.
We need to move beyond just sharing information back and forth between the government and the private sector, but actually enable multiple elements of the government, law enforcement, intelligence, CISA, diplomatic, economic, to be lined up and synchronized in time with actions that the private sector can take.
Last year, hackers breached information technology contractor SolarWinds, gaining access to government agencies, including the Treasury and Commerce departments.
It may cost literally billions of dollars to secure our cyberspace.
President Biden followed up by earmarking $10 billion in his COVID-19 relief plan for cybersecurity.
We do not have a cyber problem. We have a China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea problem.
And while they're all dangerous, retired Colonel John Mills tells me China is chief.
We can't have untrusted Chinese componentry in these environments. And the reality is we're not good at that and not good at identifying.
Sadly, though, this war must be waged inside our borders as well, where experts say disinformation has become a main cyber threat.
I think that our domestic extremists and terrorists got a pretty good look at the playbook. Number one is disinformation is incredibly powerful. The ability to overwhelm airwaves with any sort of messaging.
Those Homeland Security experts say it is absolutely essential for the U.S. to strike back when attacked, but they say leaders need to strongly consider case by case whether that retaliation should take a cyber route or a physical one. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
A teenager is taking on Twitter in federal court, saying the tech giant refused to take down pornographic images of him extorted by a trafficker. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation Law Center and the Haba law firm filed the suit in the U.S. District Court in Northern California on behalf of the plaintiff, John Doe.
At 13 years old, he was sexually propositioned on an app called Snapchat. He was asked to share nude pictures of himself, and he did that thinking that he was communicating with a peer. He was not. He was communicating with sex traffickers who planned to extort him. They did extort him, and then they eventually put his child abuse images, which are illegal under federal law, on Twitter. John Doe only found out about this 3 years after it happened.
The lawsuit contends John Doe is not alone and that Twitter profits from the sexual exploitation of countless people because of its design. Twitter did not respond to CBN for comment on this case. Coming up, Iran threatens nuclear weapons and the International Criminal Court targets Israel. All those stories are coming up next. Stay with us.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. It's been a tumultuous week for Israel, from Iran threatening a nuclear bomb to the International Criminal Court suggesting war crimes investigations in Israeli-Palestinian conflicts. But in the midst of all of that, some good news regarding COVID-19. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem to go through it all. So, Chris, Iran shocked the world by suggesting for the first time it might produce a nuclear bomb. How'd the Israelis talk about the Israel's response to that statement?
Well, Ephraim, right now, first of all, they're being prepared and getting prepared. Just about 10 days ago or so, the IDF Chief of Staff, Avi Kokavi, he said that they were preparing operational plans. You have to believe, Ephraim, that the Iranian threat has been around for so many years, so the IDF certainly have those plans. He was sending a signal both to the United States, the new administration, also to Iran, that Israel will do what it needs to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. They're willing to go it alone, and I think they see a weakness right now in the Biden administration, and they want to get ready in case they have to eliminate Iran's nuclear program. It was really startling that the Iranian intelligence minister really said that they could go public with a nuclear bomb if necessary.
The International Criminal Court ruled it could investigate potential war crimes by Israel or the Palestinians in their ongoing conflict. What's the concern here?
Well, Ephraim, it was almost like a 1-2 punch this week, you know, with the Iranian intelligence minister saying what he said. And then the ICC said that they could really put Israeli political and military leaders on trial. So it puts them at risk. For example, if they're traveling to a country that's a party to the treaty of the ICC, they could be arrested and charged with war crimes. It all has to do with what happened in 2014 and 2018. In 2014, there was a war with Hamas. In 2018, there were massive demonstrations on the Israeli-Gaza border. So they are saying, basically, that Israel is liable for these war crimes. Israel says it was defending itself. We were there in 2018. We saw what Israel had to do to protect themselves against these demonstrations. In my view, Ephraim, based on what I saw and how the IDF tried to avoid any collateral damage, it certainly wasn't a war crime.
Now to the good news. We hear the Israelis may have produced an effective treatment against COVID-19. Tell us about that.
Very exciting development, Ephraim. It's a new drug. It was given to 30 patients that already had the COVID-19 virus. They were all in the hospital. Some were on oxygen. They were given 5 doses once a day for 5 days. All 30 recovered. In fact, CBN News was there at the hospital, and one of the ladies came in and said she was between life and death, and she thought this was a miracle drug, and it really could be produced for the rest of the world. It's a very exciting development.
Indeed it is. You want to remind you folks that you can get more stories like this and more from Chris and his team by tuning in to the Jerusalem Dateline show. You can catch it on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Still ahead, they're called grooming gangs. They prey on young girls and trade them for sex. So why is the government too scared to stop them? We've got the story next.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Ephraim Graham. Welcome to Studio 5.
Get on it.
All that's new and now in the world of uplifting entertainment with celebrity interviews.
There's a higher contribution that will make.
Musical performances.
I'll give you my best praise.
Plus movie and TV news.
See it and be uplifted.
On Studio 5. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern at cbn.com/Studio 5.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. I want to turn our attention to Europe now, where there's a disturbing assault against women that's been going on for decades. So-called grooming gangs stalk the streets from London to Vienna to Stockholm. They're Muslim men who drug, rape, and beat young European women and sell them for sex. So why aren't public officials stopping them? George Thomas reports on this ongoing horror.
For some 40 years, hundreds, perhaps thousands of young women have been drugged, raped, and beaten across dozens of UK cities by men belonging to so-called grooming gangs.
They're gangs of men who groom young teenage girls and abuse them for sex and end up, in some cases, imprisoning them and passing them around, lots of other guys and lots of other people, even selling them for sex. And these girls get abused for many years.
The problem not only continues, it's getting worse. December 2020, British authorities charged 32 men in a grooming gang with 200 sexual exploitation offenses against 8 girls, some as young as 13.
Arrests and prosecutions have happened around 40 different cities across the country. In 1 or 2 cities, we know there's at least 1,000 victims. So that's many thousands of victims, and many of these victims have been raped and abused by more than one abuser as well. So the scale of the problem is massive.
Most perpetrators convicted so far are reportedly Muslim. The majority of their victims are white.
My story started over 20 years ago. I was targeted in my late teens.
At the time, Ella Hill, not her real name, was living in Rotherham, north of London, when targeted by a Pakistani Muslim grooming gang and
raped, beaten, strangled, suffocated, tortured, almost drowned to death, suffocated to death, really, really brutally harmed, covered in bruises.
Hill said it was made clear to her by her attackers that because she was white, a non-Muslim, a virgin, and didn't dress modestly, that she deserved to be punished. She was reportedly raped over 100 times and endured what she says was religiously sanctioned sexual violence and torture.
People need to hear it from survivors that these are racially and religiously aggravated crimes. That when I was being beaten, I was being called a white slag, a white whore, a white that over and over again, the references to my whiteness was always at the forefront of my perpetrator's mind, and that was always linked in with religion and his idea of what a good Muslim was and a bad non-Muslim was.
She escaped a year later, becoming part of the UK's largest ever child sexual abuse investigation. More than 20 years later, these same assaults in European cities are only getting worse.
The sexual violence is increasing because of the number of immigrant men from Muslim-majority countries who are responsible for most of these, not all of them, but for most of these.
In her new book, Pray, Somali-born women's rights activist Ayan Hirsi Ali argues that immigration and Islam are major factors threatening women's safety. She documents how a surge of migrants coming to Europe from Muslim-majority countries has led to a spike in rapes, sexual harassment cases, and other violence against native white women.
There are groups of men, most of them immigrant, who engage in this behavior of catcalling, calling them whores, trying to touch them, trying to grope them. Sometimes these men act in groups and they start hunting, treating the women like prey and start assaulting them.
At the core, Ali says, is an Islamic view that European women are neither pure nor modest, are too free and therefore immoral, deserving severe punishment.
When they come to countries where women are free and go about their business as they please, these men are shell-shocked and start to behave really badly.
Tim Dieppe, with the UK's Christian Concern, says some European governments are in denial, refusing to admit the problem is partly linked to immigration and Islam.
People are afraid to tackle this, afraid to talk about it because they don't want to be called racist. And that means that we're sacrificing young girls on the altar of political correctness.
Dieppe points to a recent UK government report which failed to mention the role Islam may have played in fueling some of the grooming gangs.
There are people in the government and the civil service in particular who just didn't want to go down that route. And the excuse they used was, we've not got enough data a lot of the time. But there is evidence and from victims and others that Islam has played a role.
Hill says she went to the police 5 times, yet they never did anything. She believes authorities back then were scared to take action for fear of triggering unrest in the Muslim community.
This is why I feel compelled to talk about what's happened and what is still happening.
As a refugee, Ali says she's not against immigration. She insists, however, European governments must have effective programs to help integrate and assimilate new migrant arrivals.
If we don't do that, we're going to empower the far right, the Russian misinformation agents, and the radical Islamists.
Since her attack, Hill has spent several years speaking out on behalf of victims of sexual exploitation. It hasn't been easy. She's been labeled a racist for reporting the abuse and threatened by far-left groups like Antifa because she's white.
I get called a Nazi, I get called a fascist, I get called a bigot, I get called an enemy of Islam, which is all lies. I'm not any of those things at all.
Hill is a Christian and says her faith is what keeps her grounded and strong.
My very strong belief is love your enemy. So love your enemy, bless those who curse you, and do good to those who spitefully use you. That is what I fall back on.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali's new book is called Pray, Immigration, Islam, and the Erosion of Women's Rights. It's available wherever books are sold. Stay with us. We'll be back with much more of CBN NewsWatch right after this.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel, then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Before we go, it is time for your Friday Faithful, and today I want to leave you with this message. Showing kindness isn't costly. It gives generously to those who extend it and to those who receive it. Make every effort to be kind today. It costs a whole lot less than being ugly. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend, and do that on purpose. That is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We thank you so much for watching. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. And you can also find them online at any time at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at that address right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We would certainly love to hear from you. Again, have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We look to see you right back here come Monday. Goodbye, everybody. God bless, and thank you so much for watching.